Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Brilliant Indian Sages. Ancient India was one of the most scientifically advanced places on Earth. It's a land of myth and legend, but also of supreme knowledge. Ancient Indians knew about genetics, performed plastic surgery, and even completed complex brain surgery. And they may have had knowledge of visitors from other worlds. If we look at the ancient Sanskrit texts from India, we see a lot of bizarre things happening. In texts like the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Yajurveda, there is discussed something called a Vimana. In the Mahabharata, a hero named Arjuna sees an incredible ship flying through the sky. The ship lands softly on the ground and is covered in wonderful flashing lights. The vessel has a smooth metallic body, and when the hero approaches, a door opens on the vehicle's side and a flight of stairs flows down as if by magic. This sounds an awful lot like a flying saucer, or at least a modern aircraft. And yet these contraptions are discussed in Sanskrit texts from thousands of years ago. Other records even talk about something that sounds a lot like a nuclear weapon. The Indian gods were said to possess a weapon called Pasupata, which was forbidden to launch against the planet because it would obliterate it entirely. Some have speculated the ancient Indians did indeed make contact with advanced life forms from another planet. These other beings then bestowed upon them knowledge of genetics, math, surgery, and so much more. But because the Indians didn't understand the interplanetary connection, they turned the aliens into their gods and wrote stories about them. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Number 9. Beehive Houses. Thousands of years ago, humans started molding Earth into dwellings in the shape of beehives. It's not clear where it started, only that evidence of the practice has been found in Turkey as far back as 3700 BC. The idea caught on, spreading into neighboring Cyprus, Armenia, Greece, you name it. Beehive-shaped structures have been found as far away as Ireland. But what is a beehive house, and why did ancient people start building them? The house looks exactly how it sounds. It's a conical dwelling like a giant beehive with a hearth, some beds, and enough storage for personal belongings inside. The beehive house was such a great idea that they are still used to this very day in villages in Syria. There are still people who live in traditional beehive homes just like their ancestors did over 5,000 years ago. In these places, almost nothing has changed since prehistoric times. The reason such homes were built in the first place was mainly a lack of available building supplies. There wasn't a lot of material lying around in the Syrian desert. Plus, they had to deal with earthquakes, extreme heat, and raging winds. So the ancient people looked to nature for inspiration. They may not have been able to work with metal, and they didn't have their own written language, but they were knowledgeable enough to understand that Mother Nature makes things for a reason. By copying the design of the beehive, the desert dwellers made their houses able to resist the mechanical stress of wind pressure. The conical shape made the structure absorb less heat from the sun. And finally, the whole thing could be made out of readily available mud bricks. Number 8. The Key to Life. Paul Davies, an astrobiologist at Arizona State University, believes we have ancient knowledge stored inside our DNA. According to him, the ancient knowledge was left inside of our bodies by extraterrestrial visitors to Earth in the distant past. Dr. Davies has suggested that we shouldn't just be scouring the heavens looking for signals from aliens. We should also be looking at our own genomes to see if there's a message there, one that extraterrestrials left behind after a visit. The theory is that when humans were still primitive monkeys, aliens visited the planet. They then messed around with our DNA, which led to our rapid evolution and streamlined advancement to the modern era. When they tinkered around with our DNA, Paul believes that they left a message for us to find when we became smart enough to see it. This sounds like science fiction, but it might just be true. A pair of scientists from Kazakhstan recently announced a shocking discovery in human DNA. They found what looks like an intelligent signal hiding inside the human genetic code. The code appears to have been intentionally seeded. The information is non-biological and looks like a math equation, but nobody has been able to translate it. Scientists are calling it the wow signal of the genetic code, referring to the mysterious radio signal detected by SETI in 1977. If true, it could mean the secrets of the universe are literally encoded in our own DNA. Number 7. The geometry of Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe is an ancient temple complex in Turkey that was built by an unknown group of people 12,000 years ago. The site was built out of stones that weighed over 20 tons, at a time when human civilization was still in its infancy. The Ice Age still wasn't totally over yet, and most people were either nomads or living in caves. All the same, some group of unknown people created one of the most impressive temple complexes in the world. 20 stone circles and over 200 intricately carved pillars can be found here, many of them over 20 feet tall. The stone is also decorated with strange images of creatures that look like they're from another planet. But there have been some new developments, and it has to do with advanced geometry. Israeli archaeologists from Tel Aviv University recently announced the discovery of advanced hidden geometric patterns. The researchers were studying some of these stone enclosures when they came across equilateral triangles. This shows that the builders understood geometry at what must have been a modern level. Archaeologist Gil Hackley says the geometric precision proves the structures were all built simultaneously. The builders planned the structures beforehand, used math, standard measurement units, and geometric principles. This is an extremely shocking discovery. There is no way that Gobekli Tepe could have been made without first coming up with a floor plan for the structures. In other words, the people here needed to create a blueprint of what the complex would look like. That's something that wouldn't be done again for thousands of years later. These were people with wooden clubs and stone tools, and yet somehow they drew up advanced plans for a temple complex. And now for number 6. But first, it's shoutout time! Big thank you to Cassius Crazy and SP4 for supporting this channel. Click that subscribe button. Be sure to join the Origins Explained family. Number 6. Flexible glass. Somehow, a very smart man in ancient Rome came up with something so brilliant, even the best inventors haven't been able to copy it to this day. There are 3 separate sources for the story, so there does appear to be some truth in it. One of the most reliable sources is Pliny the Elder, who wrote of the invention of flexible glass around the year 78 AD. As far as the legend goes, a glassmaker asked for an audience with Emperor Tiberius. He showed the emperor a glass drinking vessel and then threw it on the floor. But instead of breaking, the glass only dented. The glassmaker was then able to remove the dent with a hammer. He said his invention was a new kind of glass, as flexible as bronze, but transparent. The story goes on to say that Emperor Tiberius hated the invention so much that he had the glassmaker killed and his workshop destroyed. Tiberius was worried that flexible glass would destroy the value of the silver and gold he had stashed away. So the advanced glass-making technique was destroyed before it could ever be understood. And to this day, scientists have never been able to replicate it. Number 5. The Osirion. There is an ancient megalithic structure in Abydos, Egypt called the Osirion. It can be found just behind the mortuary temple of Seti I, and yet the structure has nothing to do with the temple. Its purpose is unknown, and so is the identity of its builders. We don't even know when it was created. The mysterious structure appears to resemble a tomb from the Valley of the Kings, only on a much smaller scale. The site is broken down. It has been for years, but archaeologists can still tell what it used to look like. There was a large stone-paved island in the center, with chambers stretching on either side of it. The only way to enter the structure was through a stone passage, almost 300 feet long. In the entire country of Egypt, there isn't a single piece of architecture remotely similar. One of its most impressive features are the very blocks it was made out of. The Osirion has huge trilithons, meaning a pair of vertical stone posts with a third, smaller stone sitting horizontally on top. The most famous trilithons are in England at Stonehenge. These things typically aren't found in Egypt, making the place even stranger. As for who built the Osirion, many experts believe it was Amenemhet III in the 12th dynasty. This was the same king who allegedly built the labyrinth at Hawara. The labyrinth is a legendary structure that's never been found, a subterranean maze hidden underneath the pyramid of Hawara. Ancient historians say it was once filled with 3,000 rooms of secret knowledge. If the Osirion really is connected with the labyrinth at Hawara, its true purpose could be something out of this world. Number 4. Whispering trees. Indigenous people all over the world have known for thousands of years that everything is interconnected. From the tallest tree to the smallest plant, the Norse believed in the tree of life, which they called Yggdrasil. In Mesoamerica, they called the ceiba tree the tree of life, with its roots going all the way down to the underworld. Even in the Christian Bible, there is a tree of life within the Garden of Eden. Egyptians also had their very own tree of life, called the Ished tree, from which the gods themselves were born. In ancient Assyria, people carved mysterious trees in stone that almost look like a DNA double helix. The earliest civilizations, and even the most popular world religions like Hinduism and Islam, understood the importance of the mystical tree of life. But did they really have secret knowledge of an unseen world, or was it all just symbology? The truth is that there does appear to be an ancient network spread across our planet. Scientists have confirmed that forests act as one giant superorganism, with fungal highways underground connecting the oldest trees to the youngest saplings. Even more, it appears that these trees and plants may communicate with other species in the forest. This should come as no surprise, considering plants have been evolving for 600 million years. Fungi and plants have a symbiotic relationship known as mycorrhiza. In 2019, scientists started a project to map the mycorrhizal fungi network. It's now looking like they've identified the most ancient social network on Earth, an interconnected web of plants all communicating with each other across the globe. Number 3. Ptolemy's Mysterious Map. A mysterious map of Germania, put together by the ancient Greek scholar Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD, has been baffling scientists for years. Ptolemy lived in the city of Alexandria over 500 years after it was founded by Alexander the Great. He was an astronomer, geographer, and mathematician. He was also the very first person who created a map of the world with longitudinal and latitudinal lines. That was a pretty big deal 1,200 years ago. Most of the maps that Ptolemy created were based on older maps, writings from marine explorers, and other accounts of places in Asia and Africa. He also supposedly used a lot of information stored at the Great Library of Alexandria. Before it burned to the ground, this library was said to be one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the world. Ptolemy also made maps of the universe. He made a lot of astronomical discoveries that even Isaac Newton admitted should have been impossible without the same instruments that he used. Then there is the mysterious Germania Magna. It's a map of Germany and the area west of the Rhine that Ptolemy had no business knowing about. This was a region of Europe that the Romans never managed to conquer. It wasn't until the medieval days that people really knew the area. And yet Ptolemy put together a detailed map complete with 94 settlements that nobody else knew about. We still don't know where he got his information. However, it does seem to suggest a much better understanding of the world by ancient people than we give them credit for. Number 2. Advanced Astronomy. The Babylonians had an extremely advanced knowledge of astronomy. One of the greatest achievements of Babylonian scientists was creating the calendar. Starting around the year 1800 BC, they tracked solar and lunar cycles to develop a highly advanced almanac that could be used by everyone to track the days, months, and important celestial events. The development went on for 600 years. The Babylonians mapped the constellations, creating the ones we know today like Capricorn and Gemini. It's crazy to imagine it, but we are still using the same astrological symbols as they did almost 4,000 years ago. They also used sophisticated arithmetic to calculate the months and dates. Only the Babylonians did it a little differently. They designated the first day of every month as the first day after the new moon. Even with the differences, we could still line up our modern calendars with the ancient ones from Babylon, and there would be very few differences. Number 1. Roman mills. The Romans were some of the first truly practical people. While many of the more ancient civilizations had advanced knowledge of the cosmos, nature, and the human soul, the Romans craved knowledge of technology. They were all about efficiency, advanced engineering, and progress. One of the greatest examples of this are the Roman mills. Romans constructed mills for everything from agriculture to mining. The first was built around the 3rd century BC, simple operations used for grinding grain. But as the Romans pursued their thirst for knowledge, the mills got better. They soon developed milling machinery to crush ore at mines, decreasing the need for human labor. They implemented some of the first technologies that took away people's jobs. Yet at the same time, their mills increased productivity and boosted the Roman economy. One of the most impressive creations was the sawmill. This was a sophisticated machine powered by a water wheel and used to cut both wood and stone. A reciprocating saw could be hooked up to the machine, a constant supply of water made the wheels turn, and a simple rod and crank worked the saw. These began to be used around 250 AD in the city of Hierapolis in Turkey. Thanks for watching! Do you think there is a secret code hidden in our DNA? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!